Coming back to another one of our top stories, the High Court in Johannesburg has approved an historic 5 billion rand settlement in the silicosis case. Legal processes involved gold miners affected by lung diseases since 1965. Now, claimants will be paid out in the region of 70,000 rand to 500,000 rand each. The miners and the dependents of the deceased miners were represented by lawyer Richard Spoor. He joins us now via Skype. Thanks so much indeed for joining us on the line, Mr. Spoor. This has been a long journey.
It has, and it's an enormous relief, I think, to everybody, myself included, that the court has approved the settlement and created a platform for us to move forward and begin this process of making some form of redress for the horrors of the past.
Take us through that journey. It couldn't have been easy. From what I understand, this is perhaps one of the most complex multi-party settlements that's been undertaken.
I think the starting point is to recognize that the South African gold mining industry, which is significantly older than 100 years, has operated with virtual impunity. And prior to 2011, when the Constitutional Court ruled that they did have a right, the law was that workers had no right to claim compensation from their employers. There were no criminal consequences or administrative consequences either. So in effect, employers could kill and maim with impunity. And the first part of the struggle from 2005 to 2011 was about establishing the right of workers to hold their employers accountable in the civil justice system. When that was done, we were able to initiate this litigation against close on 40 different gold mining companies who've operated different mines at different times over a very long period of time. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we have been engaged in a negotiated process facilitated by some very able facilitators, and that eventually resulted in an agreement that was concluded last year. That agreement has now been interrogated by the courts very, very closely, and I'm enormously relieved to see that the courts are satisfied that the parties have done their best, and this is probably the best that we can reasonably achieve for workers. It falls short, I mean, like all settlements and all agreements do, of undoing the wrongs of the past. At most, it's kind of partial justice. But the settlement happens in a context, struggling industry, a declining industry, and we're satisfied that this is about as good as we can make it. We hope to add some value to the settlement by developing synergies with the government and the state compensation scheme, and hopefully we can assist them, they can assist us, and we can deliver this compensation more effectively, more efficiently than would otherwise be the case.
Right. What's been the reaction?
We're hopeful.
What's been the reaction from some of the victims and families of victims that have passed on? I suppose relief, as you say, it's some justice, perhaps not everything they wanted, but at least their lives are now being recognized in some way.
I think you've got it exactly. I mean, we embarked on quite an extensive consultative process, and that message was the same. We're tired, we're exhausted, we're dying. Let's get this thing settled. Let's get some kind of tangible benefit. We've been losing about 4% of our clients every year, which means over the last 8 or 9 years, we've probably lost well over a quarter of our clients have died. Time takes a very, very heavy toll. And I think workers are just happy to see this thing come to a conclusion. They want to see a tangible benefit that will have a positive impact on their lives. And I really hope that the settlement brings that about.
About how many victims are going to be compensated? I know that there are different classes of compensation depending on the type of illnesses that they got. But in total, how many people are going to be benefiting from this fund?
These are estimates. The industry has done its estimates and we have done ours. I anticipate in the region of 30,000 minors or widows should benefit under the scheme. But that does require us to examine a lot more than that.
All right, going forward, I mean, these things go back to 1965. Are you satisfied that a class action suit such as this probably won't be needed in the future, that the mining houses have done everything that they need to do to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again?
No. I mean, what this does is give employers an incentive to take more care, because for the first time there are some civil financial consequences for harming workers. But this is relatively new in South Africa. Our law is still several decades behind most democracies. It's still woefully inadequate. We still have really serious problems with workers who are not being adequately compensated. We're busy now with litigation on behalf of coal mine workers, but across industry, we do a lot of work involving injuries and diseases, and the situation is poor. And one of the reasons it's poor, and one of the reasons we see so many injuries and diseases in South Africa, is precisely because of the lack of accountability. There are no civil consequences, there are no criminal consequences. You know, it's always been illegal to expose workers to harmful quantities of dust, but in the last 100 years, there's never been a prosecution of an employer for that. You know, under South African law, if you die an unnatural death, there must be an inquest into your death. There has never been an inquest into the death of a miner who died of lung disease.
All right, so
the system isn't working.
Yeah. So I guess
and so I've got to try.
Yeah, sorry. I guess with this, as well as the Nkala case of a few years ago, is helping set precedents for future litigation.
It's about changing cultures. It's about accountability. It's about, and I do think, especially on the part of the larger corporates, there has been a quite substantial change the last decade or so, a recognition of the importance of reputation, good relationships with communities, the value of a corporation being well located in a community, well respected, well regarded. And I think that kind of trend is reinforced by the kinds of actions that we've been involved in. We're trying to reinforce something that's not only happening here, but is happening around the world. But, you know, it follows on slowly. So if we look north in the DRC, in Zambia, Zimbabwe, you know, they still need to get to where we are. And we're trying to collaborate with our partners in Africa to reach out, extend liability, hold more accountability, and change the culture there as well. It's a gradual process, and I see it unfolding in my career over decades. We slowly see this progress, and it's nice to be part of it, but it all takes a very long time.
All right, so Mr. Spoor, well, we thank you very much indeed for spending time with us, and congratulations on the work that you've done, and we wish the best for the victims, the families, getting some compensation for what's been a difficult journey for them as well as you. Thank you so much indeed for your time. All right, now the